Gem State students seem to be taking a step back when it comes to going forward with their education. College, trade, or some sort of post-high school schooling is slipping. But Boise State is working to help rural kids go on while still in high school. Day 3 of the 67th Idaho Legislative Session, and we're back to talking about abortion. This time about pulling funding from cities who refuse to enforce our recent abortion bans. We got our state seal shortly after Idaho became a state. But did you know before that, we had something similar from a controversial source, which was adopted on this day more than a century and a half ago. All right, we've heard a lot about education from the governor this week. It was all over his State of the State address. Specifically, he's focused on funding. Pump more dollars into Idaho public schools and we will get better results, right? Well, we've been doing that for a few years now here in the Gem State. But numbers from the Idaho State Board of Education show the percentage of kids who choose to continue their education, well, that's dropping and has been since 2017. Boise State is looking to turn those numbers around by focusing on Idaho's rural school districts and removing barriers for Idaho's rural students. Here's Andrew Bartline.
After walking high school graduation, fewer Idaho students are taking steps to continue their education.
Maybe it was 50-50. I'm not entirely sure. I have a few friends that I keep up with. They did not.
Alexander Bird's a junior at Boise State.
Originally, I'm from Nampa. I was born at a hospital. It's not around anymore.
And his in-state status at the university is becoming less common. Half of Idaho high school seniors immediately enrolled in continued education in 2017. The State Board of Education says that has since dropped by 12%.
I don't think you'll see a high uptake or a high college access rate if you don't remove barriers, obviously.
Boise State believes those barriers can sometimes be literal.
President Trump's mission really is to reach out to our rural school districts and bring education to them, not them come to us.
Karina Way coordinates BSU's 15 to Start program.
Correct. Yes, it is very new.
The university works directly with 10 rural Idaho school districts to offer college-level courses right at the high schools.
So the teachers are certified to teach at the college level, so they have to meet the college requirements. They are high school teachers, first and foremost, but then they are hired by the college or university to teach a college course. So the students get to stay at the high school, they get a college course at the high school, and then they take those credits that then transfer wherever they go.
By the time they graduate high school, rural Idaho students could have also finished a full semester of college at Boise State.
Taking that approach early on and providing those opportunities, I think, is paramount.
Alexander knows from experience.
When I was younger, I wasn't sure if I was going to college.
Because while he's a BSU student,
It's a shift in mindset that brought me back, really.
college wasn't his initial path.
I joined the military at 17, was in the military for just over 8 years, got out and decided I was going to go finish my undergraduate and pursue med school.
Finish. Because Alexander already took a few steps early as high school.
Whether or not I took full advantage of it, yes, it does have value.
Specifically when done right.
People, facilities, programs, etc., that provide opportunities to explore what really interests you. I think that I didn't have that when I was younger.
That's the gap BSU aims to close with rural Idaho students.
And I hope students take that opportunity to really explore what they want to do as well, because you never know where life's going to take you, and taking opportunities early and often is key.
All to take steps
I've doubled down.
toward boosting Idaho's college rates.
Pretty content in the pursuit that I'm on. It's fulfilling.
The program had 6 schools last year and expanded to 10 this year. They're looking to continue that expansion. They currently serve 40 students in remote areas of Idaho, and a large piece of this has to do with awareness as well. The university has a presence in these schools, and they actively reach out to students. And when we think about first-generation college students, Brian, I think it's easy to think of marginalized groups,
Right.
underrepresented groups. Well, they say oftentimes when they come to these students and say, we have this program at your high school, would you be interested? A student at Emmett or Mountain Home, perhaps. they say, I don't know if college is really for me. My family hasn't gone to college before. So that's part of this too, is reaching out to those people that don't have the opportunity or maybe didn't know that it was there in the first place.
Let them know the availability of that. You know, it's not just the remote schools this works in. My daughter, graduating high school this spring, could also walk at BSU because she's taken concurrent classes at BSU and could get her AA degree this spring as well as she's graduating high school.
She's helping you out quite a bit,
She is, exactly. Saving some of those funds, exactly. All right, thanks, Andrew. All right, if you happen to check out the agendas at the State House the past couple of days, you probably would have noticed they were a little on the light side, as in nothing really happening on committees or in chambers. That changes today. Rules have been set, so let the show go on, as they say. This week, lawmakers are talking about some of the intricate rules the legislature operates around. One of those rules, some call it a loophole, to get legislation to the House floor without it going through the proper process. So an idea has been pitched to kind of close up that loophole. Joe Paris following that discussion and the idea that could penalize local governments that push back on the state's abortion law. Joe?
Yeah, let's first talk about this perceived loophole. And really, this is exactly what we're talking about in the sense that there's a lot of people that call it a loophole, but really it's actually just a House rule that can be used at different frequencies. Last year, we saw it a lot. Previous years, not so much. But taking a step back, in the legislature, almost all legislation goes through a process that involves going through a committee and then to the House floor or the Senate floor. However, there is a limited window at the beginning of the legislative session, which we're in right now, where Idaho lawmakers can get a personal bill printed without the whole process of committee going on. So there's also a mechanism where that bill, that personal bill, it can be called up to the floor for conversation without the committee process. Last session, that mechanism was utilized by now former Representative Ron Nate to talk about the grocery tax bill. He argued that the personal bill process was the only way to get his idea debated because committee chairs wouldn't allow it to pass through, effectively killing the idea. Back to this year, Representative Britt Raybould introduced a change to the rule so that personal or informational bills, as they're called, can be printed. Yes, but they can't be called to the floor in the way they have been in past years. The idea also caps personal bills at 3 per session because there is a workload for legislative services offices that comes with it. They could get overloaded, you understand. Now, Representative Raybould detailed her idea and answered a major clarifying question in committee.
This is solely addressing what you may have previously heard referred to as the personal bill process, where these are bills that are essentially produced for the purposes of giving them a bill number and making them public. That process in and of itself, I believe, is detrimental to the committee process, and encouraging our representatives to go through regular order and the regular committee process, I believe, is the right way to encourage ideas being brought forward for the public to have the opportunity to weigh in and for us to consider as representatives.
So if one were to file an informational bill, then there would be no, there's essentially nothing else that happens. It just sits in the clerk's office. There's no way to call it to the floor. Is that correct?
Chairman Crane and Representative Gannon, yes, that is correct. You still have the opportunity to call bills to the floor from the regular committee process. I can only speak for myself, but I believe that we are doing a disservice to the public when we attempt to pull a bill onto the floor without it ever having had the opportunity to have a public hearing and have the opportunity for the public to participate in those deliberations.
Republican Representative Heather Scott made a point in response. Sometimes, again, a committee chair will simply not allow a bill to get through a committee, if it does happen for a variety of reasons. Now, her point, Representative Scott here, is that the personal bill process and having it called directly to the floor can be the only way around a committee chair that simply won't hear a bill. Representative Raybould suggested that Representative Scott pursue a rule change that would require committee chairs to hear all bills. We'll see where all of this goes, specifically the idea from Raybould that did pass out of committee and is on to the full House to consider, so that should inspire some pretty good debate. Also making early headlines out of the same committee. This is the House committee we're talking about, the committee work, an idea from Republican Representative Bruce Skog on the topic of enforcing Idaho's criminal abortion laws. His idea? Penalize local Idaho governments that refuse to enforce the criminal abortion laws.
It's regarding sales and use tax withholding from any local government entities that openly defy the enforcement of the state's criminal abortion statutes by, for example, declaring their city as a sanctuary city for abortions or directing their police to not investigate allegations of criminal abortion. If we allow cities to start sliding away from the laws that are felonies in this state, to say, well, we're just not going to enforce those, then we're going to end up like Portland or Seattle and the anarchy that has started to edge in those cities. And this is just one area. So I would like to see this applied to other felonies, but we're just zeroing in on this one right now. Should a city or county take such actions, which moves us philosophically in the direction of anarchy, in my opinion, this bill amendment would hold back that entity's sales and use tax. The bill has been vetted by the previous Attorney General's office that it's satisfactory, would withstand constitutional muster.
So this idea is relevant in, say, the city we're in right now, the city of Boise. Last July, Boise City Council passed a resolution that basically says they won't use city resources to investigate claims of or allegations of illegal abortions in Boise. And at the time, Boise Mayor Lauren McLean said, quote, "The resolution makes clear that the policy of the city of Boise is that we will not divert public safety resources from taking care of our neighborhoods to investigate claims of abortion." So, if Skog's idea eventually became law, the city of Boise could see tax revenue that is supposed to go to Boise withheld by the state tax commission. But Brian, we are just 1 week in. We're just kind of warming up here, getting some of the formalities out of the way. But you can see here already on Wednesday, lawmakers are digging into it.
Well, that topic of withholding funds from cities that won't enforce the state's abortion bans, that kind of brings to mind the idea of county sheriffs who say they will not enforce any sort of federal gun laws that are passed under any administration. We've had that happen many times. What's the difference? I mean, other than the federal angle to that?
Right, yeah, and those are the sanctuary cities we've heard talked about,
Sure.
the Second Amendment sanctuary cities. And you heard Representative Skog say that, we'd like to do this in other areas of the law. We're starting here with abortion. We'll follow up with him, and we'll see if him or another lawmaker has specific ideas of what types of situations they'd like to see in terms of local governments not enforcing laws. We'll keep an eye on this. It's a very interesting idea, especially considering what's going on here in Boise.
Yeah, another good point about the previous topic you talked about, whether committee or introducing bills on floors. I mean, committee is the only place where the public can have their say in public in a committee meeting. They can't do that in the chamber. They can't shout things out, but input is kind of the only place to do that is in the committee hearings.
Yeah, and Representative Rabel, she was concerned with the fact that, if you have a personal or informational bill just simply printed, there's no public hearing process. Now, again, you hear from someone like Representative Scott that says, if I can't get a committee chairman to accept my bill for whatever reason, there's no mechanism for me to share this and have an idea from my area of the state shared with the rest of the lawmakers. So, tale of two sides here, but I'm interested to see what this looks like in terms of the floor debate in the House, which we'll expect soon.
And it's only week one. All right, Joe, thank you very much. The Gem State's Great Seal is certainly unique in its design and its designer. Its previous version, though, has a sketchier story behind it. All right, this is your call out for comments, or maybe a story idea. We can take those right now in a text message. Put us in your contacts, 208-321-5614. Include the hashtag, the 208, and your name. Spelling and grammar and a G rating matters. And stick around. We might share yours at the end of the show. By now, you've likely heard and know the story of Idaho's Great State Seal. In 1890, the first resolution of the first state legislature, well, Resolution 1 they called it, it created a committee to offer a prize of $100 for the best seal design submitted. And around that time, an art student from Stockton, California, stopped over in Boise on her way home from New York. And she decided to stay here in Boise, and she started teaching art to the Pioneer children. Miss Emma Edwards gave it a go, and her take took hold on the design, with that first legislature adopting her seal on March 14, 1891, becoming the first and still only woman to design a great seal of a state. But did you know there were 2 other Idaho seals before that? And one of them was adopted on this day 157 years ago. Throughout our country's history, when a territory was created, it also spawned a circular seal. You know, like with Kansas, Utah, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. In 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln signed the Idaho Territory into existence, a design by Silas Cochran was submitted and stood as our symbol for almost 3 years. That is, until Idaho's territorial governor at the time, Caleb Lyon, felt the eagle, the Union, it needed a redo. So he did the redo himself, sketching out an idea with a ram atop a shield of mountains and a river over a banner with what looks like the word for ointment, but is actually Latin for hello, Solway. That seal morphed into something with an antlered animal, so no more ram, but the hello remained. Lyon's layout was accepted by the territorial legislature on January 11th, 1866. But Lyon's legacy was about as sketchy as his sketch. In 1847, he was apparently appointed as a consul to Shanghai, which he skipped, and instead ended up in California, where he took credit for designing their state seal in 1849, which he didn't do. He followed that with a stint in the New York State Assembly, the U.S. Congress, and somehow managed to earn President Lincoln's appointment as Idaho's second territorial governor in 1864. Oh yeah, Idaho's capital city moving from Lewiston to Boise? You can blame Lyon for that. A year later, after failing to find diamonds and supposedly stealing more than $40,000 meant for the Nez Perce tribe, Lyon left, saying goodbye or Walye to Idaho instead of Solway. Lyon's design lasted until 1890, when Idaho became a state and we adopted Emma Edwards' version as our state seal. Lyon wasn't even around when they adopted his seal, by the way. He's already back on the East Coast. He returned there in 1865 to live out his life on his family estate on Staten Island, which he called the Lyon Castle. He called himself the Lion of Lionsdale, which is where he was born, because, well, he fancied himself a talented poet. His detractors, on the other hand, like those in Idaho, called him something else: conceited, peculiar, a man who made enemies and misappropriated public funds. All right, lots of needed snow falling on Idaho's mountains lately, needed for our farms and our rivers and our powder hounds out there. Bogus Basin getting about half a foot, Tamarack getting about 8 inches in the last 24 hours. Sun Valley saw 4 inches, Brundage getting 6 of new snow in the last 2 days. And the resort that got the least, well, they kind of needed the most help. Soldier Mountain Ski Area just got about 1 inch of snow over the last 24 hours. You may be wondering why we're giving you a ski report. Well, it's because in so Idaho fashion, a visitor to Fairfield Area Resort took it upon themselves, well, to help clear some of that freshly fallen snow in the Soldier Mountain area. They posted this on their Facebook page to, of course, amusement and chuckles. Despite the size, the remote control plow is doing a pretty decent job, as you can see there, clearing a pathway, right? Next time you hit the slopes, though, you might want to mind these big machines. All right, the funny doesn't stop there. The definition of a dad joke is an unoriginal or predictable pun supposedly told by fathers. Endearingly wholesome, they're called. Corny or basically unfunny. We all know this. Well, the U.S. Geological Survey Office of Idaho opened up the spillway yesterday. It started with this tweet, with what we assume was with regard to the atmospheric river that is dunking on California right now. We have a hydrology joke, but it's all wet. Then asked for the Twitterverse to add yours, and some did, like other branches of the USGS. From the Mississippi Gulf region, who knows a thing or two about an overwhelming amount of water? Why does water never laugh at jokes? It isn't a fan of dry humor. Or this one from the Water Resources Office. Did you ever hear the joke about the 3 holes in the ground? Well, well, well. Another one. I have a geography joke, but it's split into many parts. Okay, how about this one from Idaho's Natural Resources Conservation Service? Okay, here's our best snow joke. How do you find Will Smith in the snow? You look for Fresh Prince! Yeah, we know it's pretty bad. We're doing our best out here, people. Are you, though? Then other branches of the USGS got involved, from the mineral side of things. Our appetite is more for geology puns, but we'll dip our toe in. If H2O is water, then what is H2O for? Why, it's for keeping our colleagues in the water science centers employed. To which Idaho's folks responded appropriately, nice. Which is actually a metamorphic rock. Get it? I know, these are some bad dad jokes. Damn bad. I'll show myself out.
Lots of different areas continued to see those low clouds and fog throughout the day today and lingering in some areas like Ontario. But that's changing now that we have another system on our way, because this system is bringing some light winds with it, and that pretty much takes care of the fog because it enhances the mixing within the atmosphere. So we have some moisture that's going to be moving into our area. Doesn't this pattern look so similar to what we've been seeing? We've got another low pressure that's continuing to pump that moisture into our area. And again, I want to show you how showing what's going on in our state by showing you what's not going on. We don't have any weather alerts right now, but you can see several different spots in our region have those alerts in place, especially in California with some of those flood alerts still in place. So for what you've got going on tonight, the winds pick up ahead of this next system. We have some really light showers for tomorrow, and then more moisture continues on Friday and into the weekend. So throughout your 7-day forecast, you'll notice we're expect to get up to 50 degrees for tomorrow as we're greeted with those early morning rains, and then the rain comes back into the picture before we start to see a rain-snow mix later next week.
All right, we are 3 days into the legislative session, and yeah, we're going to cover it like we always do, going all the way through the end of the session. But people already having questions about it, like this one here from Judy, who says, excuse me, but there are so many more uses of the legislative process than to keep beating the dead horse of the abortion issue. Well, they're still talking about it, but how to enforce that when some cities say they're not going to spend resources to enforce a law that maybe they don't agree with. We want to find municipalities that won't enforce the state's arcane abortion laws. Will we fine our attorney general when he refuses to prosecute inconvenient violations, or a legislature that decides they are smarter than taxpayers and void a properly voted on law? I assume talking about the Medicaid bill that was passed in 2018. That's from Scott. That is a good question. But yes, again, everything taken at its face value. Maybe, I don't know, address it as it comes down the pike. Question. Your story said fewer Idaho kids are going to college, but are the ones who go on out of state accounted for? I have a 2022 Idaho grad who's freshman at ASU. Is he counted on as not going on, or more kids going out of state? Just wondering how that stat is counted. Well, according to the State Board of Education, Carrie, they're all counted. They just have to be reported. Whether it's in-state, out-of-state, college, trade school, they just have to report. And if they're reported, they're accounted for. And those numbers show they're going down in Idaho. We'll see you tomorrow.